Hello, and thanks for joining this session. Today we're going to pick up on our chatbot again. We're going to take a quick look at the public chat API after a quick reminder of what the admin interface looks like. Right now, I have both the test and the local development and the production API up and running. We can see that the chat is showing up from last session. It's actually this session again. So that session is not going to end up getting recorded, just FYI. But we had some issues with Vimeo that are now fixed. So this whole process of looking at recording the chat on a session that got rebooked for a different day had the side effect of keeping the original information. That looks like Supernova's on chat, which is awesome. Yay, Vimeo. So we have a lot of really fun stuff that's already in the chat for this session. The API for the public chat is going to be different. If we head to the test meeting, this is the one that we'll probably use for this session. We can see that there's a bunch of messages. The way it's implemented currently is the author ID is just the ID. The author ID with the source type is how we're able to not redirect, but get the author information, so to get the actual name and avatar correctly. The sessions actually the messages are also tied to a session and have individual IDs. So we can do some things in here to sort of make sure that the messages that we receive are related to the session that we're actually on. For the admin interface, none of that was an issue or concern. Hey, it looks like Jaloops is on now as well. Thanks for joining. So what we want to do is replicate some of the functionality that we get if we go to Twitch. So if I go to one of my old videos, let's see. Here we go. So if I find one of my older sessions, let's see, maybe it's this one. Something that actually has chat in it. As you can see, the chat up to this point in the stream is what you can see. And if we go further into the episode, we can see more chat showing up. So this is what I want to be able to accomplish. The live chat that happens during a session, I want people to be able to do something similar where they can see the chat as it comes through, because most of the time the chat is going to be relevant to what is being discussed here. You can also see that people can actually add additional content, additional chat messages as they're watching an episode. And you can see the post at 53:38. So we can see that that's actually where the video time is. So this would give the effect, especially for something like Astrocasts, where we have a lot of content that is sort of like long living. Like if I go, this is where we got stuck on the last session. I went to this video and it said it was private and unavailable. And I'm like, no, that's not true. And then they all were, which was just awesome. Anyway, enough Vimeo shaming. They actually turned around my request and apparently whitelisted my account to not do that again. We'll see if that works. But all in all, it was actually probably 15 or 20 minutes downtime total from when I noticed that my account was locked to when they fixed it. So that was pretty good. But we do have the ability to catch the time as it's going through here. So if we were to build a chat interface that was visible up here, we would be able to do the same sort of thing after the fact. So people could come to this specific episode and see the chat. If they have additional comments they'd like to make at a certain point in time, they'd be able to do that as well. Likewise, eventually, if we go to live sessions, this particular session itself can actually be seen real time. So what I would like to do once the public facing side is up and running, I'd like to be able to give people the ability to watch the chat live from the site itself, so they don't actually have to go to Twitch. And then one of the other things on our list of things to do is to give Astrocast users the ability to be authors, so that in addition to Twitch, Discord and YouTube as sources for messages, Astrocast users would be able to. So you could just from right here, as you're watching the episode live, you'd be able to write comments in. So it's very similar to Twitch's interface and the way that they're already doing things. So that's kind of the direction we're heading. But there's a lot there, and since I'm not doing much more than just writing out a kind of a bullet point list of stuff to do, this could be a little interesting. So what I'm going to start doing is sketching out sort of the pieces that I think we'll need and how we'll actually use them. We'll be able to look at some of the code that's already been written for the admin site, but the admin site was very much a proof of concept more than anything. It doesn't actually care at all about what the specific session is. It's not really designed for being able to do this next page token stuff. At least on the UI side, it doesn't do anything with it. Well, it does with the next page token, but it doesn't do has next. It just does a fixed polling every 20 seconds. So let's see if we can do admin live, just so we can see what that looks like. Yeah, so we can see that the sending side is almost identical. It's using the same services behind the scenes now. So this looks the same, but the JavaScript side is very, we'll say it's very basic. All right, so let's hop into the editor and see what we can do. Let's try and create a new Scratch file. I don't, it already had stuff in it. That is not what I expect to happen if I say new Scratch file. So that's weird. All right, so let's do JavaScript, because that's where we're really gonna have to get our information. All right, so one of the things that we're gonna have to do is account for polling, but also live or instant repolling. And we're going to put that in quotes. So what we had set up before was an interval. So in the admin side, we had set interval, poll, and it was like, I think it was 20 seconds. And that's not what we're going to do. For the public side, we're going to have to do something like set timeout, set timeout. So rather than just continuing to poll, we need to actually be able to reset this, because this timeout is going to depend on whether or not there's a has next variable available. One of the other things that we were doing before, and I'm actually going to jump in the code to show this concept as well. So let's do live. When we were appending messages before, so inside the poll function, we were getting the message, and then we were getting the next page token and just recording that, and then we were calling append chat message with the chat data. This was getting called just outright. If we look at this function, this is where we did a little bit of caching, that if we've already seen that message, then we don't need to do anything with it again. So this accounts for the polling is going to catch any messages that for some reason push or dropped, but we don't want to ever double post messages. So this helps with that. But we were doing stuff directly with the DOM at this point. So this dropped it right into the messages container. So we don't want to do that in our case. We need to have an abstraction layer between receiving the messages and actually displaying them, because we want the display messages to be based on the time. So we need to, I think I have that here. So store messages in sequential order in JavaScript. So let's add that to our Scratch file. Here we go. So we need to be able to do that and say show 1 second here. All right, so we need to keep them separate. from the actual DOM. So we can show them in time. But we also need to account for live. So I think the way that it's going to have to work is if session is live, append, else, add to message store, something along those lines. So it should be, it's gonna, like I said, this is going to be interesting, the amount of stuff that's going to be happening here. So I think this is sort of the core of what we need to do to at least get the data into JavaScript so we can do something with it. Once we have it here, we need to be able to accept new time from Vimeo, because all of the hosted data, or all of the hosted videos, are stored on Vimeo. So let's do, there we go. So we're going to need to be able to handle some sort of event. So we're going to have to look at what we had. Actually, let's look on, I think it's on session. There we go. Let's see if this is where it's at. Vimeo. Actually, this might be one of our assets. Let's look in web components, video. Maybe not. It would be good for me to know where that is. Let me do a quick search. Actually, report progress. See where we're using this. Usage in progress repository. Maybe let's look for progress repositories instances. So let's do, I need to remember where we had that JavaScript code living. All right, not in the container. That's fun stuff. Here we go, progress controller. All right, so report progress. All right, what is in session? Interesting. I have that open first. I think I did. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so report now. So what we have is some throttling happening. Window throttle report now, and we send Axios post. So every bit of time, it's good looking for that. Report progress. Here, on time update. Report data. So it's calling, okay, this is a weird function. I wasn't sure what was going on here, but this actually, I believe, makes sure that when time update happens on Vimeo, it reports the data. So report here is actually a function that won't fire any more than every 5 seconds. So this is actually what we're going to need to do. So let's mark this and say, so since this is Vimeo, we can do see, the be chat dot emit time update data. So where we're going to need to do this. So back to our Scratch file. All right. So inside chat emit, we're going to have to do something to say, okay, now that we're in, now that we've gotten the time updated, whether it be because of actually watching the video or scrubbing back to earlier or later, it's going to need to redraw. So I don't think we're going to do anything at all with the DOM. I think we're going to see what we can do to avoid the DOM entirely, at least right now. Hopefully it works out. So let's go ahead and get started then. I'm going to do some stuff in our JavaScript. Rather than building it inline like we did with the live HTML, I think I want to try and build these more into some more component-y type things. And in fact, we could probably do a web component. So let me see about this. I think as long as I'm not doing anything with Shadow DOM yet, I think I'm fine with this. So I think I'm going to do that. Let me check the countdown. Do I have shadow? No. Okay, cool. So let me do Astrocasts test, or Astrocasts chat. I guess we'll add it. And let's try to build everything in there because that's going to allow us to get some additional information. Inside app, I think we need to import it. Here we go. Require Astrocast countdown, require web components, chat, there we go. Now this should make it available as this variable, or this element. So let's go ahead and see if we can make that happen. So I'm going to copy some boilerplate from our countdown. Let's do at first. I'll just copy it all and then run from there. All right. So let's do chat until. I'm not going to do anything there, and let's do Astrocast chat. And if you're unfamiliar with web components, which honestly I am still pretty unfamiliar with web components, what this does is at the browser level allow you to add custom elements to HTML. So it sort of feels like working with something like React or Vue, except that you're able to not use a framework necessarily. So it's just pure JavaScript in here. So let's do console.log chat chat connected. All right, so now we're going to actually place this element somewhere. So let's go to session.html, and I think for now, let's see, where do I have this? Project path, session 2 and sessions. Okay, this is this part. So let me do div. Let's just make sure this shows up where we expect it to. Oh, and also since we are building proper JavaScript, let's go to yarn install to make sure that's up and running, and then yarn watch. So we can start leveraging this stuff right away. All right, so if I go to astrocast.test, I need to, Okay, that's just because it's rebuilding. Awesome. Okay, so I need to find out what session 81 was about. So let's go, no. So we have 83, 82, 81. All right, so designing an API continuation token. So this is the session that has the chat messages that we actually want to work with. So let's go to the front end site for that. So we have this one here. All right, so we see chat. So chat seems to be working. Things are where we expect them to be. So now let's try to do Astrocasts chat and see if we get a console message. Oh, we don't. Awesome. Oh, now we did. I did a hard refresh. So the chat connected shows up whenever it is that you have actually created the whenever the element's actually bound to the main DOM. All right, so inside, what we need to do is figure out what we're going to do now. So what I had in the previous callback was the code that was actually looking at doing the polling and things like that. So the things that we need to get information from, how do we get that? So all right, so we can get attributes. So we need to give it the URL that it's going to be polling from. So let's do const, let's do polling, new polling, and yeah, we'll just name it polling because that makes sense. Class chat, actually no, class polling. You know what? I don't remember how to create a JavaScript object with actual arguments. Yeah, 6. All right, so it is just constructor. Okay, so we'll do URL, and then this dot URL equals URL. So what this allows us to do is start giving more meaning to our elements. So we can do polling URL. Oh, let's see, what is the URL called? Let's go to, there we go. And then we need to pass the ID. All right, let's see if this works. All right, so we have a polling object now with the URL that should be getting us the chat messages that we're interested in. We probably also want to do a check to see if it's live. I don't remember how I was sharing that concept before. Vimeo video ID. Otherwise, in progress. Okay, so let's do that because we're going to need to know whether or not it's in progress. And since we are already using that naming scheme, we'll continue to use that. Chat, all right, so polling in progress. So it's null. Let's go double check what this does now on our current session. All right, so I don't want Twitch there. So it is getting null. Oh, I think this is the problem in progress. Oh, yeah, now we get 1. All right. Okay, so that's good. So we're able to see that. So we should probably pass this information along to polling so that polling knows how to behave in case it needs to behave differently if something is in progress. So let's do in progress. And then we'll do polling URL. And let's rename this from just plain polling to polling URL. Oh, we'll do in progress. All right, so we then need to change this to polling URL. Okay, so we have polling URL is correct, and we have progress equals 1. All right, let me pause this and reload this page. All right, so in progress equals empty string. So we probably need to be a little smarter about that. So in progress, let's do true or false. Okay. In progress, we'll do equals true or we just can do this, I guess. Comparison, true may cause unexpected type coercion. All right, now we have a proper Boolean false and a proper Boolean true. Okay, cool. I'm satisfied with that for now. All right, so this polling logic then can live inside the constructor. Let's do polling.start, and then it can just do what it needs to do. Start. Let's do set timeout. We need to run it first, and whatever we run, it needs to actually do the start timeout. So let's do this.poll. So we're going to need Axios. So let's go back to where we were using that here. Make sure we've got that. Let's bring that in. So poll is going to do axios.get, and for get, we're passing the URL. Yeah. So we'll pass this dot URL, then response, and then what was it? Is it catch? Catch error. Okay. In both cases here, we're going to want to call poll again. So if we get an error for some reason, let's do set timeout, poll, and let's do, say, 60 seconds. So if we ever get an error, we're going to essentially come back again and try anyway. So whatever the error was, hopefully it'll be fixed. Otherwise, let's do another poll in 20 seconds. Now, the things that we need to do is keep track of the next token. So let's do next, what is it called in the API? Next page token. All right, because we need to be able to pass that as well. Am I not allowed to do this? Oh, I am, cool. So the URL, we actually need to build that. So let's do URL. If this dot page token equals to null, return this dot URL. Otherwise, this dot URL. I want to make sure that's the it's underscores. Okay, next page token equals this dot next. All right, so if we get a response, we need to set next page token. Let's response.data.next page token. All right, so that should ensure that we're not going to do anything with the data here, but it should ensure that we go back again and poll the next time with the next page token. Let's actually do console.log error in case we get that, so then we'll know what's going on. All right, so let's do this session. Ooh, unexpected token. All right, so failed with one compile. Okay. I guess I maybe can't set those. I've been outside of JavaScript enough that I guess that's not working. How do you set instance level class? I thought you could do that, but apparently you can't. Oh. Let's see if this works. No, types are not supported by current JavaScript. So I'm not going to worry about that then. Let's just do, let's try it like this. Maybe we don't have to set it since it's defaulting to null, hopefully. This .url is not a function, but it is. It's right there. All right. I didn't really think that my JavaScript was this far out of practice. Static method. Unless I can't have, yeah, that's probably the problem. Maybe I just can't have a function named the same. There we go. Let's try that and see. Okay, cool. So let's look at our network tab. It looks like it is getting next page tokens, and it's going every 2 seconds. I switch it from 20 seconds to 2 seconds, so it looks like it's actually polling correctly on here. Okay, so this is where it's going to get fun. Well, let's do, so we can work with this smaller. So now what we're going to work on now is this part. Set timeout. If data dot has next, we want to poll again right away. Otherwise, we want to wait. So this is how we can consume the messages more quickly when it has next. So let's do maybe set timeout. And then let's go to 20 seconds. And also let's go to our session chat message and let's change our default data, or our default paging limits to say 5. So this should show us collecting a bunch of information more quickly. 1 second. Okay, so let's see here. Okay, so the first few, it looks like, contained actual messages, has next, and then here is where it stopped, and then has next, false. So what I want to do is watch it again, this time paying attention to the timing. So let's do session 81. All right, so the very first one came through. So these are coming through about every 2 seconds. So has next false, so it's been stuck here for a little bit longer. Oh, now the next one came through. So it looks like it's going to be working about right. So this is similar to what YouTube is doing with their pagination or API continuation stuff, that it's actually going to sit here now and slow down the polling on it. So if something isn't live, the polling is going to go much more slowly. So initially we can get the information quite quickly, which is good, but we don't have to then wait forever. So let's see, let's go back to chat. So has next, let's actually have it go to 1 second. And then this is where we can use the in progress status. So I think that we'll do if this dot in progress. So if a session is actually in progress, we want the polling time to be shorter than if it's not, because the likelihood of people interacting and chatting real time during a live session is a lot higher than if I go visit some random episode. The chances that somebody else happens to look at a random previously recorded episode and is chatting while I am, I think is less likely. So if the session is in progress, let's do polling every 20 seconds. Otherwise, let's do it much higher. So let's do maybe 60, it's every 2 minutes. So this should work pretty nicely, I think, for what our use case is going to be. So we're going to poll frequently, more frequently, if the session is in progress. If it's not, we're going to go less frequently. And if we still have additional data, then we're going to poll again rather quickly. And in fact, I might even drop this to 500 milliseconds, because that should happen pretty quickly. And then finally, if there's an error, we should log the error, and then let's do something similar here, except probably maybe add a 0. So let's do, actually let's do 2 minutes. Yeah, let's do 2 minutes in this case, and then maybe 4 minutes or 8 minutes if it's not, because if there's an error happening behind the scenes, I don't want to flood the system in that case. All right, let's double check to make sure it still works. Yeah, it's pulling in those messages much more quickly now, which is good. Okay, so we're getting the messages, but we're not doing anything with the data. So what we need to do now is come up with some sort of store. So let's look at this and see. Polling with has next and timeout. I think we can say we have that done. We need to store the messages. This is posts for authenticated users. Okay, so now we need to come up with a store. Let's do const store. All right, and the things that we're going to need for the store, it probably doesn't matter. So I need to figure out how to get information from polling into the store. I don't know if it makes sense to, I guess it does. So let's pass the store to our polling instance. Store. All right, so let's give some information. So let's do add message. So what we should do here is, let me double check the data contains messages. There we go. And I can probably add collection. No, let's not do that. So here we actually want to process these. So we'll do for message. Let's message. I don't think I can do const here. Store, add. Message. I think, I can't remember if it's of, I think ES6 of loop. There we go. Let's look here. Yeah, I think that's what I want. Iterating over a string, over an array. Probably missing has own property check. Has own property I. So it's not a, that's the problem, I think. For I of. All right, let's see if this works, and then we can do raw message. This can be static. It can be, but I don't want it to be. All right, so now we can go back to our console and reload this. All right, so we're getting the information that we need, so good. So I think this is might be a good place to consider stopping for today. I think the, let's do constructor. The thing that I'm going to have to look up is probably some more old school algorithm things, so it might be an interesting session or two, because I need to figure out how to properly sort these values into essentially based on their time. So if I look at this one, I don't know if I need to do it based on time. Maybe I do. But the point is that I need to do something a little more different with these than just storing them raw. So I might have to do a little bit of research before the next session. But let's do this dot messages, push raw message. Just for now, I think that will work. And then let's see here. So the way I foresee this working, this session is going to be, or this class is going to be responsible for keeping track of these. I think that what we need to do is keep track both of this and also the probably HTML templates of these images, or of these messages. so that we can easily get them back out of here. So what I'm guessing is that we're going to have something like read until and then timestamp. Something along those lines, so that we can go through the messages, find all of them that we had, or possibly read from until, from timestamp to timestamp. So if we know outside in our object that we've already read up to a certain point, now I need to know if there's anything between that and later to update those. But I think this is probably going to be overkill. I don't think that's going to be a use case that is super useful. What I think we might end up doing is redrawing the entire DOM every time. And I sort of tried to take a look at how Twitch was doing that as well. I thought maybe they drew the entire chat interface, like drew all of the messages, and then would either hide or show them depending on whether they should be visible at that point in the timeline. I don't think that's what they were doing, from what I could tell. It looked like they were actually adding and removing DOM elements. So I think the fastest thing might be for me to just write out the whole DOM every time. And if we can do that with something like the shadow DOM, I think that might actually be pretty fast as well. So I think that's what I'm going to probably try to do a little bit of work on yet tomorrow. So thank you for joining. If you have any other questions, feel free to keep jumping into Discord and send messages there. And hopefully tomorrow we can actually start showing messages under the little chat section up here. Thanks for joining. Have a good night.